Welcome to Worth the True. We are about to have our next session regarding relationships. Um, we've been discussing, the purpose, the meaning of relationships last week, and we have started a new series. And today we will be discussing the purpose of relationships in the natural, our natural relationships. My name is Zaria Cortez Hicks, and I will be your host this evening. I will be joined by my three fellow panelists um, and hosts, Astrid Brown, Kelley Marrero, and Chrislyn Robinson. We decided to pick apart relationships into four separate categories: the social, the psychological, the emotional, and the physical. And in speaking in terms of social, we found that to be one of the most important topics in relating to communication and how we relate to one another. So I would like to start by asking Chrislyn if you can chime in on what you feel about the social aspects of relationships in the natural.
The purpose, right? You're talking about
Mm-hmm.
the purpose. Well, I think all relationships, um, especially social relationships, they're there, the purpose or the reason why they exist or the reason why they're created, the reason why we come together, the reason why we intermingle. I believe, just my personal opinion, um, is that these relationships factor into us becoming who we are, become and becoming. Because I think that once you start developing social relationships, and our first social relationships are actually the ones we have with our family, how we interact with our siblings, our parents, um, extended family, they begin to help shape and to mold us. How we're going to interact with the rest of the world. So I think after you've done that part or you're living that part of your life, which is obviously ongoing because your family's your family, you're with them forever. But I think that once you start interacting with the rest of the world, those social relationships, they help you to branch out into other relationships, whether they're employment, whether they're platonic, whether they're like BFFs forever kind of thing. Um, if something leads to marriage or so I think that the social aspect of relationships is one of the most important. It helps us to identify things that we might want to do in life, the goals we want to accomplish in life. What does my career look like? I think that once we start developing social relationships, all of those particulars become in play. um, I think it also helps us to identify better um, our own self introspection if we're those kind of people, like, you reflect back on things. So I think the social aspect is one of the most important parts of relationships in terms of developing into something else.
Absolutely, absolutely. Actually, believe that foundationally, um, when we have children, we realize that as they're becoming into themselves as toddlers, there is such a strong social factor to that. We talk about social skills and social communication, even from a very young age, in teaching, because children are very self-centered and they're very I centered, and we teach them about the we and how we relate to one another and how they relate to other people and how they relate to the world. Astrid, what do you think in terms of the social aspect of relationships in the natural? What's your take on it?
I think that like what Chrissy was saying, it has to do with us as individuals and how we relate to other people, like, how we separate acquaintances from friends and family. I just feel like for me, there's a difference between acquaintances when it comes to relationship That's people that I go to like work with. And then there's within that, there are people um, on my job that I'm more familiar with. I have more of a take on with them. And then there's the other ones that are just like, you know, not placed in that category, but they're still like you can still interact with them, but
Mhm.
on a different level.
Mhm.
So I feel like socially, we do need to have all different types of relationships. It comes also with a level of maturity. It comes with a level of where you place every person in your life, because I have my family is huge on both sides, on my mother's side and on my father's side. And there's just some family members that I'm closer to,
Right.
that we have that better interaction with, and than others. Not that I don't love my other cousins, but there's just something about certain of my cousins that we just click, we just connect. And I feel like that's a beautiful thing to have, when you can relate with certain people on a certain level, and it kind of produces like a knit. And saying that, I was thinking about, in the Bible there's the story of David and Jonathan. And it kind of like, I love that story, because I was like, how was Jonathan so close knitted to David when his father was, totally against David and who David represented and who David was. But it just shows you that, you know you can be in a relationship with somebody even outside of, people opinion, and people thinking, and people's views. You can still have a close knit relationship with somebody. Like, I had a best friend, her name was Anna, and she passed years ago. And everybody knew that me and her were very, very close. We were close during high school, we were close in college when we both went to nursing school. And then, even after that, when we got our first job, I remember going to my first job. I was looking for a job in my city and I couldn't find a job. So I had to go travel, to a different city. They had opened up a medical brigade, and it was a new thing that they were doing in my country. And the American U.S. Army was a part of it. And they, when I went there, I didn't know that I think it was 4 or 5 other classmates were also involved in the medical brigades. We didn't meet each other until the first day that we had to like get together to actually go on the field. And to my surprise, we had a supervisor, and they told us that we will meet our supervisor also when we get there. So when we were coming in, of course, when we started seeing like, oh my God, you part of this, you part of this, because we all knew each other, because we did grew together while we were in nursing school. It was like 35 of us, but there was a little group that we were really, really knit. And up to this day, we still friends, even on social media. Like, we still keep in touch with each other. But my best friend, I didn't know when I joined the job that she was the supervisor. So imagine when I got to the job and we met our first meeting, and I saw my best friend, like, the scream and the hug and the crying and the, oh my God, it was so special. So yes, there is, it's healthy to socialize. It's healthy to have that person that you can talk to, that you can vent to, that you can have a relationship, a healthy relationship. like before we discuss, I think, about being toxic in toxic relationship, but you have, which I feel like you have to also learn how to separate one thing from the other. But being in a close knit and having that link, it kind of like it's like with me and Zaria, like we've been through a lot and we know each other for a long time. And it's like, even if we're distant, I can still go to Zaria house and we can just kick it. And and it's like we never, like I never left or she never left. So that's my take on it. It's like I think that each one of us, we know what we're looking for in a relationship. We know what we, at this point in time, like when you get to be like our age, like Kristlyn said before, when you get on that minute, when we've been here for a minute, you kind of like like when you're in high school, you learn you just getting to know who your friends are, who you want to be around. When you get to college, the number starts dropping. It's a different group now, and now you start, like, your circle starts getting smaller. And then as you grow, you start learning who are your real friends, who are acquaintances, who are just the high and by, or the ones that you, like I said, the far you see and the sad you see. So I kind of like got to that place now where I know who to feed with a wooden spoon and who to, like, really have a close knit with, that I can confide. A lot of times I have talking to Kristlyn about different things about my own personal life. And because I feel like I have, she has opened that door, she has given me that room to come in. So that's my take on it right now.
Well, I would tend to agree with you. I think that our parents told us, and as parents, we've told our children, not everybody is your friend. You
Yes.
know, and kids don't understand the difference between friends and acquaintances. They think that everybody that they come in contact is their friend until they've had different experiences, or somebody betrays them or hurts them, or does something that they didn't expect, and they're able to, as they get older and more mature, weed out. But it comes through, unfortunately, some kind of painstaking process sometimes. A lot of heartache comes from learning who your real friends are sometimes. Even in the aspect of using communication, just being able to relate, like you said, Astrid, being able to talk to someone, having that, unique bond and ability to be free, to be who you are. Because to be friends with someone, you have to be able to be who you are freely, without any pretenses or any falsehood, without any mask on, because your friend is going to accept you for who you are.
Yes.
You know?
Exactly.
Kelly, what do you think about the purpose of relationships in the natural, as it relates to the social aspect?
Okay, so I wanted to piggyback a little bit off of what you said with the children. A lot of times when I'm by my daughter, she tells the girl, it's the younger ones especially, when they're upset, use your words, to express themselves. And I think that's the key, using the words to express yourself, with your being able to communicate, which is one of the things I know I keep jumping on that, but it's just really important to me, because I remember growing up. And again, I know I go back to my dad, because he was such a disciplinarian. We always had to do what he said, speak when you're spoken to. It was that kind of thing. And I felt like I couldn't always express myself. I couldn't always communicate what I wanted to say and what I felt as a young girl, and even growing up. So it took me a long time, even in my relationship with my husband. Sometimes if I'm upset, I just don't know how to say it, because it's just, I've always been shut down, kind of, not in a bad way. I don't want to say, I mean, my father did the best he could with us, because my mom died when I was young. But I just think that being able to express yourself and communicate, having someone you can trust in, like you were saying, having a friend that you can, like, I have a best friend. She's I could tell her anything. I didn't speak to her for almost a year because of my own issues. And even though she was upset with me, we came back together like we were never apart.
Yes.
And that's important. And I don't have a lot of friends. I don't. I have a lot of acquaintances, but I don't have a lot of solid friends. And she's one that I could tell anything to. I can express myself, and the same, for her with me. And that's what we need. I think that's what we need even in our relationships with our siblings, our parents, our significant other. That's really important, that you can just feel like you can, like, pour your soul out to them, and they understand, and they don't judge you on it. They just embrace every part of you, every pain, every hurt from the past, all of that. To me, that's really important.
I absolutely agree. Were you finished with your thought? I don't want to cut in.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So I actually was raised very strict as well, and I have difficulty communicating and expressing myself. Number one is I hate conflict. I hate conflict. It just is something about it that puts the nerves in the pit of my stomach. And when I ever feel like I'm put in a position that I am feeling uncomfortable or unhappy, and I can't express that, it just brings frustration, and it brings distance. So in relationships, when she talks about communication, it is so key to be able to express yourself. I mean, I understand everybody is not verbal. Everybody doesn't use verbal clues, but communication, even if it's nonverbal, even if it's just by gestures, facial expressions, we have to learn how to read one another and interpret that, so that like, there could be a look, the parent used to give you that look, and that look would let you know, like, I better not touch this, I better not say that, I better not go there. I think that there has to be, when you're in a relationship, even if you can't express yourself verbally, there has to be a look or a sense of just, when you know somebody, their facial expressions, to understand, what, maybe it's time to back off. Maybe I should, revisit this. Maybe I should ask if I did something wrong. I mean, like I said, until nonverbal people become verbal, I understand that communication can be very difficult. In terms of aspects of friendships, I am in the same boat. I don't really have many friends. I say I'm friend to many, but owner of none. And nothing, no disrespect to you ladies or anything. I just feel like, in using what you had stated last week, Kelley, be what you desire. I am, in all aspects of my ability and my awareness, I try to be everything that a friend would be to people that I come in communication with. And, trustworthy, honest, helpful, loving, kind, a good listener, so I try to be to everyone else what I desire for myself. So I feel that what happens is you open the door for you attract a lot of people that way, but not all of them are your friends. They all know that they can glean on you and lean on you and pull on you because there's something to be gained there, and they have a sense of security with you. And it's good to have that kind of foundational trust, but sometimes it can be misconstrued. I think Kristen said last week, it's, don't take me for being stupid just because, or unaware, or naive just because I don't respond to certain things, or because you did something and it looks like you got away with it. Some quiet souls, they hold it deep down inside, but it hurts the aspect of how you're going to receive in the end. I mean, as we mature and as we come into our identity more, we realize, what, I gave you the best of me, and if you didn't want that, then you're lost, not mine. So now I think this brings us right into the next topic in terms of knowing your purpose in relationships. Psychological. Psychological has a lot to do with the mind. It has to do with how one interprets things, how one understands things. It can delve into the communication aspect. It can delve into, you know, how even one perceives themselves. So I'm just gonna go the other way, and I'm gonna ask Kelley, psychological connection with relationships. What do you think about the psychological aspect of that?
Well, again, it would come back to, you know, being able to express yourself, and the person not being like, well, I don't know why you think like that. You shouldn't think that way. You're like trying to control the way you perceive things that are said to you, or, you know, in that aspect. I'm trying to like, just being able to, you know, like the way that they handle you, and the way, like if you express yourself to someone and you're telling them how you feel, what you like and what you don't like, but then they play those games with your mind, like, you know, oh no, I didn't mean it that way. Oh, come on, you're too sensitive. They'll use things like that. You're too sensitive, or you're too touchy,
Yes,
you know.
say that.
Make it feel like it's in your head. Like, oh, am I really
Right.
feeling like, is it me that's really all messed up? You know, so that's, and I think that knowing yourself, this is another thing. Just knowing yourself. I feel like as I've gotten older, I've learned, I know myself more. Instead of thinking, maybe it's me, I'm like, you know what? No, maybe it's sometimes, you know, the way you're handling me, the way you're talking to me. And that goes with any relationship, siblings, parents, you know, parents to children, children to parents, you know, like I was saying with my dad, I hate to keep bringing him up because I love my dad so much. I don't want you to think the wrong thing. It's just the way that he was raised, you know. But I remember one time coming home with, like, I think it was a 90, 95. And he's like, well, what happened to the 100? And I was like, oh. And I was like maybe fourth grade, fifth grade. It's still in my head.
Yeah.
A grown woman at 53, you know, things that people say to you when you're young, it still sits with you.
Yes.
So you know, I wasn't a perfect mom, I know, but I remembered those things, and I tried to do different with my kids. You know, I always like try to, like, oh, good job, that's great, you know, because I never wanted them to feel what I felt. And I think when we know how it feels, we try to teach other, you know, try to do better with others, and not, you know, mess with their minds like that. You don't want to do that. You want them to grow up to be healthy adults. You know what I mean? So I feel like I took a long time to heal in a lot of areas, and I'm still healing. I'm 53 and I'm still healing, you know, but you know, God is good.
Right.
You know, He's my mind. Sometimes you know, I have my ups and downs, but He keeps me. He still keeps me, and I'm grateful for that. You know, but so that's the psychological thing, like, you know, handling how we handle people, you know, especially our young ones, you know, that's that's for me is the psychological aspect of it.
Yeah, the word that comes to my mind is manipulate. Now, that word, you know, there are words that have positive and negative connotations. Believe it or not, depending on how you're viewing it and how you're utilizing the word, it can have both. When how you manipulate someone can be something in the negative, because you can abuse your power, you can abuse your words, you can say things that you know that are gonna, like she said, they're gonna, you know, they're gonna replay in your mind, they're gonna make you second guess yourself, especially if you don't really know who you are. But manipulate can also be how you change the aspect of how you deal with someone, because manipulate really means how you deal with someone. It doesn't necessarily mean, you know, something bad, but it can be used for bad depending on how you utilize it. When you can manipulate a chair, you know, to fit in the corner, you know. So manipulate is really the word means to move, or to adjust or to accommodate. And I believe that how you accommodate or adjust to deal with people really plays on their psychological aspect, for the long run. Chrislyn, what do you think about the psychological aspect of relationships?
Well, just piggybacking off what you and Sister Kelley said, which is huge. I like the idea that she brought up about how people try to actually manipulate you into thinking that it's you and not them. But the psychological ramifications in relationships, the impact can be really big. It can be really it can be damaging. It can be hurtful. It can be inspiring. It can be encouraging. I think in order to be able to deal with the psychological aspects of relationships, it takes growth. You would actually have to be in those situations to know what they look like, to spot them when they're in your view. You'd have to learn to adjust to be able to handle it. And it comes with a lot of struggle because, you know, especially when it's dealing with family, the impact can last you a lifetime. But the sting of it doesn't have to last a lifetime. You can remember it, and then after you begin to start to work on yourself. You ask God to help you with it. The thoughts there, but the sting is gone. You know, like that's that healing thing that Sister Kelley was talking about. You start to heal little by little by little by little. But I think it's very effective. Some people never recover from psychological impacts from relationships. Some of them just go off on the deeper end of it. Some people allow it to as a launching tool to grow and to learn how to deal with those types of behaviors so that you can survive it. In other words, to make it a short story. You learn to survive it because to get to where we are, like I think it was Astrid that was talking about going from puberty, from junior high school to college and all these things. You run into a whole line of people as you grow. And some of them will say, you'll never be a great cheerleader. You'll never make captain of the team. You'll never make this. You'll never do that. And as you grow, those things kind of like stay with you. And you get to college and you're saying to yourself, I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm never going to be able to do that. But some people turn around and say, you know what? They told me I'll never do it. Let me show you how this works. So it can be either or. It can be something to help you grow. Psychologically, you can actually process it to a point to where it can be a tool for growing. It depends on the person, but it can be devastating. It can be devastating, or it could be just something that could help you to. I guess if I tell you my personal story, because when people will put, I don't know why it is like this, that people like to put people down or make people feel bad or make people think they're worthless, that they're not valuable. Why? I don't understand why people have to do that. And to deal with that, you have to really, really buckle down on knowing who you are.
Yes.
Once you know who you are, you can never tell me what I can't be and what I can't do. I don't understand why people use those kinds of behaviors to injure, and on purpose. It's not like people know what they're doing. They know that they're developing a relationship that's going to hurt you. It's going to taint you. It's going to make you cry. It's going to make you lose your focus or your vision or whatever. So the psychological ramifications are huge unless there's somebody there to counteract, rebuff that. You know what I mean? If you don't got, the word of God says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You have to really literally talk to yourself mentally, talk to yourself about, how these things affect you in life. And I don't get it. I think like encouraging people, inspiring people, putting people up, telling people, you go, girl, you got this, you can do this.
Yeah.
Why can't we have those psychological impacts on people as opposed to the other side of that? So I think it's a fork in the road kind of thing. You could go either way. Like Zaria was saying, it could have positive or negative effects on a person. But I think that ultimately, for it to turn out to be positive, you really have to know who you are. You really have to grow. You have to let these things mature you so that you can process it internally and you be like, I've seen this before.
Yes.
That looks like, I know what it feels like.
Mhm.
But yeah, and you'd be like, but it ain't gonna hit me like that no more. Done that, got the t-shirt kind of thing, you know what I mean? But that takes really growing, you know. I might feel that way, but maybe a 21-year-old, 25-year-old young lady may have a different feel on it because she's young. She hasn't learned to process it that way. Maybe she's more mature for her age. I don't know, but I do know that it can work either or.
Right. Proverbs 18:24 says, a man of too many friends will come to ruin, but there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. That's what the Bible says, you know. I was thinking about what you were saying in terms of the ramifications of the psychological aspect, and I agree with you. It is huge, and there is a lot of responsibility starting from parenting. And a lot of it, and again, I understand what Kelley's coming from when she says, you know, she's using her father as an example and she's not putting him down. She loved him to death.
Yes.
Our parents had parents and their parents had parents, and when there were traditions and customs and things that they just learned and passed on to their children, and they passed it on. And I'm sure that as it went along generations, it got tweaked a little bit and a little bit. You know, everybody said to themselves, I don't want to be like this, or I'm not going to do this to my children. But my father, I grew up without my father. Actually, I didn't get reconnected with him until I was 25 years old. I wanted my children to have a relationship with him. So I sought him out, and it was rough. It was a rough relationship, just trying to maintain a relationship with him. And one day he said something, and it just, I understood immediately why we couldn't click. He said, you know, when I was 5 years old, you know, because both his parents died when he was 5. And he, at the age of 8, he was put inside an orphanage. And he said, you know, when I was 5 years old, my mother and my father died, and I was raised in an orphanage. And he went on and on. But this is how he was relaying to me why he wasn't a father to me. And I was saying, like, 8, that happened when you were 8. You're 50 something years old, and you're trying to make me understand. But he wasn't trying to make me understand. He was using it as an excuse. But as I thought back, you know, as I took the time to really think about it, just to show you how much of an impact. And the thing is, him and 2 other siblings were raised up to the age of 18, and they became emancipated adults through this, you know, orphanage. And you know, they have some positive aspects to say about it, because they all got college degrees through, you know, through going through this program. It was like you know, a convent, kind of like, you know, a Catholic, whatever. But the consequences of not having parents, and the consequences of being raised with strict nuns, and the consequences of loss and not being able to deal with it and having strict regimen, left such an impact on him that he could not be a parent to the only 2 children he ever had. Neither myself nor my sister, who was born 20 years after me. He could never parent neither one of us. And so even in trying to have a relationship with him, it was so difficult, because the closer we try to get to him, the more he pushed us away. And it was because he was not used to being around anyone. He had never learned to trust relationships and depend on people. And I mean, that aspect rippled through his life, through his marriages, through, I mean, so many aspects of he never recovered. He never recovered from that. You know, so psychological speaks to so many things. And I think, you know, I in personal relationship for myself as well, you know, because of not having a father, because of having a mother who was actually extra, you know, strict as well. Yeah, yeah, it leaves a residue. And the thing is, you say to yourself as a child, I'm not gonna do this to my kids when I have kids. And then you have children. But all you know is what you've been through. All you know is your experience. So psychologically, like, you know, I don't want to get too much in the biblical portion, but you know, the good that I would do, I do not, but that which I would not, that do I. Like, I didn't want to do certain things to my kids. I didn't want to yell at my kids. I didn't want to, you know, spank my kids if they did something wrong. I just wanted to be able to relate with them. I wanted to have communication with them. And it didn't work out initially. Like, I was a young mother, and I didn't initially go to that that roadway or that pathway. I was very strict on my kids initially because I realized, you know, at that point I was a single mother raising two boys, and I didn't want them to get sidetracked, get lost. And then I started recognizing that who I was, and I didn't like it because I felt like I was doing exactly what was done to me, and I did not want my children to feel the way I felt as a child. And so, you know, I had to force myself to change. And it was hard. It was painstaking because I had to come out of myself to be somebody that I didn't know because I never had that example. So it was so hard. So I think sometimes when people abuse you knowingly, it's so familiar to them. It's been done to them, you know. Yeah. It's been done to them, so they feel like, you know what, they have a justification to do it to someone else because it was done to them. And it's sad. I mean, it's sad, you know, that because sometimes you do it and you can't catch yourself because you just feel like this is the norm. You know, but when you understand how you relate in other relationships, because there's so many relationships in our life, that there are some relationships that we give ourselves to wholeheartedly, and those relationships are going to have to be the model for the ones that we're having more difficulty with. If we could just step back, you know, and evaluate. Astrid,
good point.
Psychological aspect of relationships, what do you think?
I think it has a lot to do with like each one of you pointed out with upbringing. You know, if you are in a healthy environment, most of the time, even if you were like with you know, you were raised up, it doesn't matter whether you raised up with one parent or two parents, but if it's a healthy environment, mentally, you are um you are free to love, to embrace. If you had that nurturing part where people taught you how to love, how to hug, how to express your feelings, how to say, you know, if you felt like you're like a failure, if you had that person that was there with you to say, you know, it's okay, you know, you can try again. Like when I was raising my kids up, I remember that a lot of things, like Zaria said, you know, that I wish I would have known, or it would have been told to me when I was growing up. I didn't have that information that I thought was very um, helpful for me. And because I also was raised up in a strict environment, and like Zaria said, you know, it's something that went through generations. And you know, my mother did what it was done to her, and you know, and so forth. But when it came to me, because I developed a relationship early with God, I started doing things differently when it came to my kids. And one of the reasons that a lot of people say to me, how do you, you know, it's hard enough to get one successful kid, but how did you manage to get two successful kids? It's because, like Kelley said, you know, a lot of things that was done to me and or said to me, whether it was in school, whether it was at church, whether, you know, it was just in the neighborhood playing with somebody, I remember how I felt about that thing, and I decided I am not going to do that when I have my kids. I made a decision. So a lot of times, you know, people can really get damaged. Even the Bible say, a brother that is hurt is stronger, is harder to win than a strong city. And we know that a city that is strong, it means that a city that's fortified. So we have to be very careful how we communicate, and how we tell others about, you know, using of our words towards others, because it can do like a negative impact. Even how, like Zaria said, manipulation. You know, a lot of people like to manipulate the situation, and they want to be always in control of, you know, you always have that little friend that be like, or that family member that you came over to the house for, to sleep over, and they always want to control everything, like even the toys, like, no, you can't play with all these toys, you can only play with this one. And if you're not, like I said, a strong individual, you will be like, okay, you know, you will sit. I remember my daughter, one time she had a sleepover by one of her relatives, and she said to me, and I came over at the time, and I saw her playing. Actually, we invited that relative over to our house, and the little girl, I told Adrian, I said, Adrian, take all your toys out so you can play with your relative. Anyway, Adrian took all the toys, and the person was, because she was an only child, and she was used to having everything by her for herself. She took all the toys from Adrian and picked whatever she felt like it had to be for Adrian. And Adrian just sat there. And I was like, immediately I came in and I intervened. And I was like, you are not, I said, you're going to put all the toys back. I was like, come on now, you're going to put all the toys back, and you both going to play with whatever toys you want to play with. I said, this is Adrian's house. And if it's Adrian is letting you play with all her toys, you don't have a right to come and tell her she can only play with one of the toys that she owns. And the person looked at me like, you know, the little girl looked at me like, she's never had anybody to reprimand that, to say that to her. And this is what goes on in society. That's why we have the need of psychologists. That's why we have a need of a psychiatrist and all these different
Professionals,
you know
psychotherapists,
yes, therapists and stuff like
psychiatrists.
that, because some people, they have their own mental reality, and sometimes you need that person there that is kind of like specialized or trained in that area to tell you, this is not a normal behavior, this is not the way that a normal person should act. Like a lot of people, I mean, some of us have been through divorces, and that is like, that takes a mental toll on you, especially if you were abused in some form or way, whether it was financial abuse, whether it was sexual abuse, whether it was verbal abuse. It was an abuse, and any type of abuse tend to have an impact on your mind. And then all the additives, how you were brought up, all the names you were called, all the situations that you had to endure, and all the different things, they all play a part, even up to that place in your life. And
Mhm.
like Chrissy said, you have to really become that strong individual. And for me, growing up in church, even though I was going through different things in my life, and my faith in God was what really gave me that oof to continue to come out of that place, because I used to be like painfully shy. I mean, painfully shy, to the point that because of your upbringing, you if you say something, when you, especially like Chrissy had said before, if you were the adults, you're not supposed to talk. Why are you sitting here? Why are you doing this? And get out of here. You stay in your child's place. You're not supposed to. I changed all of that when it came to my kids. I let them know that they were as important. Yes, they, when you explain things to kids, especially when you tell your kids, right now, mommy wants to have a conversation with this person, you can go over there and play. And when you try to explain things to kids, it's better than telling them this is an adult conversation and you have no place to be in here. The same way, like when they came back from school and they said, somebody so call me ugly. I will take them to anywhere in my room that had a mirror. And I would say, look in the mirror. And they will be like, huh? I said, look, what do you see in the mirror? And they was like, me. And I said, okay, do you look ugly? And they were like, I said, because I don't see ugly. So if they didn't respond, I will respond before them. And I would say, I don't see ugly. I don't see a failure. I don't see, whatever name they called you. And I would reinforce that with them and let them know, listen, you're just as good as the next person. I work in surgery in the hospital, and we have multiple personalities in there. And let me tell you, I've learned that a title, a position does not have anything to do with a person's character, behavior, whether they're integral. I have seen people with high positions throw tantrums during the surgery and act like a 5-year-old. And I'd be like, listen, are you okay? Like, what is it that did your wife or did your son or did somebody did something to you? And I have heard, derogatory words sometimes, because like Chrissy said, sometimes people think because they have arrived at a certain place and they be given a certain degree or they have a certain platform that they have the right to belittle you and say things like, you don't measure up to who I am and you will never get there. And I'd be like, with that attitude, I don't want to get there. I feel this way, even in the church. I feel like if you're in leadership and you're acting, for lack of better word, stupid, I don't want to be near anything that you have to represent, because I feel like, you know what? Like they say, you win bees better with honey. And I feel like as a Christian, you should have, your character should be different. Your whole demeanor should be different. I don't feel like you should be able to use that platform to ruin somebody's life, somebody's character, somebody's integrity, or to make somebody, to belittle somebody. I feel like that should be used to empower, to equip, and to edify somebody. And I'd be like, well, if you have an issue, that is your issue. And one thing I have learned in life, and I'm going to finish with this, you give somebody a platform, you give somebody a mic, and they will show you who they really are. It's going to come out. What's inside, what's up here, because the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. And we have people that they feel like by belittling others, they make themselves look more powerful. They make themselves look more in an authoritative figure. Husbands, why they beat their wives, why they abuse their wives, whether verbally or financially, it's because of control. They want to feel on top of the world. And if you have to do all of that to make yourself feel better, then you are not better. You are bitter. And you need help. And it all comes, like I said, from the state of mind. It all comes from how they were abroad. Like I personally can say, and I know my mom is watching, she was not a hugger. It doesn't mean that she didn't love me. My mom did everything she could you know, to make us succeed. She was always pushing us to do that, but she wasn't a hugger. But I am a hugger.
Mhm.
I like to hug. I like affection. I like, you know, to kiss my kids. Every day I come home, I be like, I'm home. And, you know, and I hug them and I kiss them. And how was your day? That's just me. I
Mhm.
didn't have that when I was growing up, but
Mhm.
I implemented that when I got, like I said, I chose who I wanted to be as
Mhm.
I was maturing, as
Mhm.
I was growing up. And as I kept seeking God and God kept showing me different things, I became who He wanted me to be. That's not me. You can't internalize what goes on the outside. And a lot of times we follow what we think is norm. You have to find your own norm and run with that. And not everything, even I have to examine myself sometimes, you know, when it comes to like my kids and discipline my kids. I didn't beat my kids. I refused to because I remember how I used to feel. I remember the lashes, I remember the marks, and I remember, you know, the accusations, and I remember everything, you know, and I decided I wasn't going to do that. I decided there had to be another way. And my way of training and raising my kids were sitting down and explaining to them, now, this is what you did that I dislike. And I feel like, um, you know, this is what I was expecting from you. And I am your mother. And as your mother, I am trying to help you become a better individual. Now, do you understand that? So when I started making stuff like that, they would start crying and I didn't even hit them because I brought them to a place where, okay, this is reality, this is normal, and this is abnormal. And because of that, they became healthy individuals, overachievers, and they still achieving in life because I made a choice. I'm not gonna do things that I broke tradition basically. I broke
So you
tradition, and
don't
sometimes you
go.
have to break that. You have to break
They-
it.
That's
I
true.
like what I think everybody here today has said something so similar, and I think it's all about breaking a cycle. You know, um, our parents did what I think I was saying it to Sister Kelly. I was watching Ilyana Van Zant, and she said there was a young lady on her show. And the young lady's mother was a prostitute, and her mother went out to the garbage can to find food to feed them. She went to the best restaurants to find food that they had thrown out for the day. And, you know, she was trying to have a relationship with her mother. And she said, I don't understand, she loved me. Why was she doing that? She said, baby, let me explain something to you. She said, your mother did love you. She did the best she could with what she had
With
and
the
the
information
information
she
that she
had.
had at
Yeah,
the time that she had it. And so she didn't give you away. She didn't put you away for adoption. Rather than give you to somebody else, she went and found food wherever she could. She sold her body whenever she could to make sure that you can get up and go to school every day. You didn't have a hungry night. You didn't go to bed hungry. So I said that to say this, that a lot of us have learned things that are very painful to us, and it wasn't because our parents did not love us. They
right.
just did the best they could with what they had,
Yes.
and you come to that realization whether, just they didn't want to hurt us. They thought they were teaching us because that's what they were taught, you
Exactly.
know. But when you have more information, we have more information than our parents had. And we tend to get that information in a different way. I've never hit my kids. My kids can tell you I've never, ever, ever laid a hand on my kids because I knew what it was to get beat. I knew what it was to
Exactly.
get beat up. I knew
Yeah.
what it was to have black eyes, bloody noses. I knew what it was to get a spanking with a stitching cord, a switch, you name it. And it was supposedly all been done in the name of love. Now I know my mother loved me. My mother is my best cheerleader.
Yes.
She's my BFF, my mom.
Mhm.
And she will not let me go down. I don't care what's going on in my life. She would pick up that phone and say, Chris, let me explain something to you, baby. And she would go on and tell you, and she would give me she would help me fortify me to become the comeback kid. But growing up, I talked to my mother more as she is now in her age, you know, over the last few years, and I learned so much about her and her mother. So I know that a lot of what we go through is because our parents had learned behavior. They didn't know how to break the cycle. They
Yeah.
tried to train us the same way. And so the information is changed. And we know that we want the best for our children. We don't want them slipping and falling. We don't want them hurt. We don't want to see them in jail. We don't want to see them undereducated. We don't want to see them with the wrong relationships, all that stuff. And so we try to instill in them. We try to invest in them in a different way, with the same outcome that our parents wanted for us. And that was the best,
Right.
you know? So I think like when we're talking about the purpose of those relationships, all of them are there for a reason. We just have to factor in what the reason is and how we're going to flesh out what's good and what's bad, who should be close to us and who shouldn't, without ever really saying that. It comes to that. You know what it is. And so you know how to treat your inner circle. You know where's your outer circle, that sort of thing. But that comes with development, and we teach our children the same thing. It's just like, I think it was King Solomon. No, it was David that told Solomon all of his enemies before he died. He explained to them, listen, I want you to know who all these people are, so that when they come in your circle, you're aware of who they are. You don't have to kick them out of the circle, but you know they're there. So I think that we train our children the same way. You just gotta know what to look out for. We teach them the best that we can, hoping that they'll develop some wonderful relationships that will take them through a lifetime of joy and happiness. But we don't fool ourselves. We know that there's going to be some painful relationships in there as well. But I think, like, you know, we have painful relationships. I think it was Zari that was saying that. We have relationship. And then some of them might have been really good for us, but we didn't know because we went off the information that we had, and we destroyed it and we messed it up. You know what I mean? Because we're dealing with something internally that the other person don't even know. You know what I mean? And so we're learning on the curve sometimes, but there's a lot when it comes to psychological impacts on relationships. And, you know, once we learn something new and we don't unlearn what we learned, we just learn new things to replace the things that we thought may have been devastating or detrimental to us one way or another. And we turn it around to something different that we can invest in a different way.
Absolutely. I cannot stress that the psychological aspect is so pertinent. It's one of the most with ramifications that are lasting for years and years into decades. Unfortunately, you know, when I was growing up, I wasn't in church, you know, and I think that there are many people that, you know, did not grow up in church, did not have that foundation. You know, speak when spoken to, you know, children are to be seen, not heard. And again, not speaking illy against my mother or the way that I was raised, because I think that I grew up to be a pretty damn good person. Excuse my French, I'm sorry. But I think what happens is that if you have a destiny, I believe this, you know, as Christians, you know, we're all Christians here, and this talk show and this panel, as Christians, you know, we all have been given a destiny. There is a certain amount of things that have been set before us to accomplish and succeed in. And I think that what happens is that the enemy of your soul sees that from the time you were a seed, this time you came into fruition, and he tries to inundate you psychologically. Psychologically, he tries to inundate you with things in your mind to try to destroy you, to try to get you to not be in the place where you need to be in order to accomplish the things that you're supposed to accomplish in this life. And again, all for success. God has all good things for success. Even as our parents wanted things for success, the way to bring about it, or the way to come about it, sometimes is not easily seen. I always say that when you give birth to a child, kids don't come with instructions. You know, as a parent, you don't really know what is the best move. Should I, you know, should I breastfeed? Should I bottle feed? Should I? And you don't even know what's going to have an impact on your child, especially because you may feel like you're giving it one way and they're receiving it in another way. That's, I had said that before, you know, kids don't perceive things the way that we do. So even things that we think that we did good, our kids took it a different way. You know, it was not meant to be taken that way. Just like, I guess, our parents, you know, like I said, my husband would tell me all the time, count it to my head and not my heart. You know, in our parents' head, you know, they just want to raise up a respectful, you know, successful human being, you know, at all costs, by any means necessary. And if that meant a beating, if that meant a slap, if that meant punishment, if that meant harsh words. I mean, my mother was big on reverse psychology, you know, saying, you know, you're not going to do this. You're never going to do this. And it was, but luckily for her, in me, my drive was to do the opposite, to say, I am going to prove her wrong. I am going to be this. I am going to, and all along, that was her intention. But many kids don't take reverse psychology and utilize it to benefit themselves. They say, oh, this is what you think I am. Oh, this is how you view me. Oh, and they fall prey into that. So we have to be very careful, because I mean, I grew up with a lot of low self-esteem. I grew up with a lot of low self-esteem. I mean, it's followed me even through my adulthood. I mean, I'm just now learning how to put those things behind me. And like Kelley said earlier, I mean, if you don't have a voice and you've always been felt beneath, to be beneath, someone who, let's say, did not have evil intentions toward you, let's say your husband or your child, may talk to you in a certain way or may respond to you in a certain way. And there is a bruised child inside every adult that cringes in a corner when something is said to them in the wrong way, because they feel like that little helpless child. And it's so hard to overcome that, especially if you don't have Christ, especially if you don't have people in your life, or a person. God doesn't have to send people. It could be one person. But if you don't have someone to help circumvent the negativity that you've received and the way that your mind has interpreted, it's going to affect every relationship that you have, in every aspect of how you relate to the world, in every aspect of how you see the world, in every aspect of how people respond to you. I remember this, like, I was 27 years old. I was working in New York Hospital, and I had a boss that she had a very tough character. And I remember one time, you know, she had, I used to have to call a list of patients to get prepared for surgery. And I remember one time she took the telephone and threw it at me, and I ducked.
Oh my God.
But I felt inside of me fear, like I was a child. I never responded to her. I never said nothing back. I never reported her. I was just like, I gotta just try to do, because I had 2 kids to raise and I didn't want to lose my job. And I was so scared. But looking back on that now, of course, I would respond much differently. Luckily that I have a foundation in Christ, and luckily that I've grown as a person. But at that stage in my life, I was still a 5-year-old. No, you have to do what you're told. You have to. And so, and you're not good enough, or you made a mistake, or this is why I'm justified to be angry at you. You understand? Because it always came with an excuse, like, I did this because. And so that gave a justification. Oh, okay, if I hadn't done this. And that's how battered women respond too. Like, if you had only had the food ready, or if you had only cleaned up, or if you had only not said anything. But the reality is that man who abuses that woman has low self-esteem himself. He may have been told all of his life he was nothing. He may have told all of his life, no one's ever going to want you or love you. And he's trying to keep somebody tied to him by fear. By fear, because he has no other tactics, because he doesn't feel within himself he's sufficient. Now, just when this thing was getting good, I'm gonna tell you,
getting good.
We couldn't even finish the relationships in the natural. We're gonna have to do a part 2 next week, because we only got through two aspects of it, the social and the psychological, and those two have such a huge influence on how and who we become as people. Why someone chose to become a nurse or a doctor, or why someone, I mean, you know, there's some jobs that people take. You have to feel comfortable in your own skin to do that. And you have to not worry about what other people say. You know, I mean, it's just how we, in Spanish, we say desarrollar, you know, how you just develop, like how you go from level to level and level to level. And I mean, any of you who are watching, I can't wait till you get to this stage, because it starts going faster, because then you're realizing as you're coming into your own, you're like, okay, you can't talk to me about that. Oh, you can't do that. You understand? But and you think to myself, oh my God, if I could have been like this, you know, 10 years ago.
Exactly.
You know?
That's so true,
You know?
Sylvia.
But there is such a psychological there's such an impact. I just want my ladies to just give just a quick 1 minute overview. If you had one aspect that you wanted to point out and highlight in terms of the, you know, the two topics that we discussed, psychological and social aspects of relationship and the impact that it has on your life. Let's just, you know, go really quickly. Astrid, any departing words?
I just want to say, like you said, a lot of our upbringing has a lot about how we deliberate when we are an adult, whether it's in our marriage, whether how it's handling our finances, raising children, how loving each other, even in a relationship as a husband and wife, you know, how we interact with other people. How we interact with even with ourselves, you know, loving ourselves and taking care of ourselves, you know, and making sure we are mentally stable, because life and the pressures of life, listen, it can put a toll on you, and you have to basically, like what people say, take the lemons and make a lemonade and drink up.
Kelley, your viewpoint.
I would say speak up for yourself, take a stand for yourself, know yourself, love yourself.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Only if you love yourself can you be able to love others and be able to communicate with others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Chrislyn.
I was definitely going to say what Sister Kelley said: know yourself and love yourself. Whatever negative force that tries to come against the person that you know you are, do not receive it in your spirit.
Amen.
You take that negative and turn it into a positive, and
Amen.
don't let your social interactions cripple you psychologically.
Okay. And I'm just gonna end this on this note. You're more than what you're experienced. You're more than the experiences that you've had. And sometimes we get caught up in our head about experiences. I definitely, knowing that I had started out rough with my two boys, trying to make them into men or shape them properly, felt like I made some mistakes, and I changed. And it was not an easy change, because it had to come from a place that I didn't know. I was doing it blindly because I had no experience and nothing to glean from, and I didn't really have support, but I again, due to low self-esteem and just the way that I felt that I probably didn't do the best job. And I remember one time having a conversation with my grown son, and I said, you know, in life, every parent tries and strives to achieve better for their children than their parents did for them. And I said to my son, I said, you know, one day you will have children, and you will do better for them than I did for you. You know, I understand that, because, you know, it's a growing process. And my son said to me, Mom, I could never do for my kids all the things that you've done for me. And that was such an impactful statement to me, because I had felt in so many aspects that I had failed. So to hear my child say that, you know, coming from a person who, again, I was like Astrid, I didn't hear I love you and didn't get hugs. And to be able to raise up some sound human beings, surely, you know, they're not 100% perfect. Neither were we, neither will their children be, neither were our grandparents. I mean, it's just, but just the aspect of striving for better, you know, and having that hope that tomorrow, you know, brings another opportunity, because we are more than our experiences. You know, we're not what happened to us.
That's right.
You know, but we are products of success because of what happened to us. How ironic is that? Astrid, would you like to address the audience?
So there you have it. We spoke about the purpose of relationship in the natural. And as Zaria said, we're going to have to continue on next week. So tune in to Worth the True one more time on next Monday, God's willing. We all still alive. And, you know, so we can finish this powerful series. I'm pretty sure that you heard something that kind of like, you know, gave you some type of strength to continue. Just hearing these wonderful ladies, you know, each spoke on it. It also strengthened me into knowing that, you know, we are, you know, we like the statement says, reach for the stars. You can reach for the stars, and don't let anybody hinder you.
That's right.
And don't let anybody stop you from trying to go where you need to go. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's under DaTru. That's Worth, WORTHDATRU. So you can watch all the previous podcasts that we did launch. We have an identity crisis and also letting go. They're all powerful as well. And this one will be also uploaded to YouTube probably by tomorrow or the next day. So continue to support us. Like I said, we love you. We want you to this program is geared to help you become a better you, a better version of yourself. Amen. So with that said, Sister Kelley,
You are empowered.
you are enough.
You are excellent.
And you are especially loved.
Have a blessed week,
Have a
everyone.
blessed evening.
Last week, everyone. Take care and be safe.
God bless.